at my daughter's sweet 16 party. My sister grabbed the microphone and said, "This party should be mine." My daughter just smiled and said, "Then you're going to love the surprise." A moment later, the DJ made an announcement, and my sister started screaming. I never expected my daughter's birthday to turn into a disaster, but looking back, I should have known. My younger sister, Andrea, had always been selfish. She wanted to be the center of attention at every event, birthdays, weddings, even funerals. If someone else was getting noticed, she would find a way to steal the spotlight. It was exhausting, but I always made excuses for her. "That's just Andrea," I used to say. "She doesn't mean any harm." But this time, she went too far. My daughter, Sarah, had been dreaming of her sweet 16 for years. She worked hard in school, getting straight A's while doing sports and clubs. I wanted her to have a special night, so I saved up to rent a beautiful place in New York City, a rooftop ballroom with an amazing view. It wasn't a crazy expensive party, but it was elegant and exactly what Sarah wanted. Everything was perfect, the decorations, the food, the music. Sarah looked beautiful in her blue satin dress, dancing and laughing with her friends. I stood back, feeling proud. Then, out of nowhere, Andrea grabbed a microphone. I didn't even see her take it. One moment, Sarah's favorite song was playing. The next, Andrea's voice blasted through the speakers. "This party," she slurred, because, of course, she had been drinking. "This party should be mine." Everyone went silent. Sarah stopped dancing and stared at her aunt. Andrea stood there, wobbling in her high heels, looking angry. 16 years ago, Andrea went on, I was supposed to have a party like this, but did I get one? No. Instead, she pointed straight at me, got pregnant and ruined everything. The whole room gasped. "Cancel it. I want the money for a trip instead." I heard my dad sigh. "We already paid for your dress, the caterer, the DJ. Then unpay them." Andrea snapped. "I don't want a boring party. I want to go on vacation, and if you don't give me the money, I'll make sure no one enjoys this." The video cut off there. The room erupted. Some people whispered, others stared in shock. My mom, sitting at a table, covered her mouth. My dad just rubbed his temples, the same way he had in the video. Andrea stood frozen. Then, suddenly, she lunged for the microphone again. That was edited, that's not." But no one believed her. Because my mom, for the first time in my life, stood up and shouted, "Andrea, enough." The whole room went silent. Mom marched forward, her face red with anger. "You told us to cancel your party, you screamed at us for weeks until we gave in, and now, 16 years later, you're blaming your sister?" Andrea shook her head quickly. "No, I deserved a party, I was just a kid." "You were spoiled," Mom snapped, "and you still are." Silence filled the room. Andrea looked around, hoping someone would defend her, but no one did. Her own friends avoided eye contact. My husband shook his head. Even the DJ just raised an eyebrow, waiting for instructions. Then Sarah, with a completely innocent voice, said, "Wow, Aunt Andrea, I really thought you'd love the surprise." Andrea's face turned bright red. She let out an ear-piercing screech, grabbed a glass of champagne from the table, and threw it across the room. It shattered against the floor. That's when everything fell apart. The second the glass broke, people gasped, some backed away, while others just stood frozen. The waiters stopped in their tracks, unsure whether to keep serving or start cleaning. Andrea was shaking with rage, her hands were clenched into fists. For a second, I thought she might throw something else, a plate, a decoration, anything she could grab, but before she could, my mom grabbed her wrist. "Enough," Mom hissed, "you have embarrassed this family for the last time." Andrea yanked her arm away. "Oh, I'm the embarrassment? What about her?" She pointed at Sarah, her voice full of anger. "She just humiliated me in front of everyone." Sarah tilted her head, still calm. "You humiliated yourself." Andrea let out a frustrated scream, then she turned to me. "And you," she snapped, jabbing her finger at my chest, "you planned this, didn't you? You let your little brat set me up." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. "Andrea, no one set you up. You did this to yourself. All Sarah did was remind you of something you said." "It was 16 years ago," Andrea screeched. "I was a kid," Andrea yelled. "And yet, here you are, still acting like one," my dad said sharply. Andrea's eyes widened. Dad rarely raised his voice. When he spoke, people listened, and right now, he was done listening to her tantrum. "You're 32 years old," he said, shaking his head, "and you're standing in the middle of a teenager's birthday party, throwing a fit because you're not the center of attention. Do you even hear yourself?" Andrea opened her mouth to argue, but then she saw the way people were looking at her. No one was on her side, not her parents, Not her friends, not the guests, even strangers could tell she was acting crazy. That's when she panicked. She turned to her husband, Ethan, eyes pleading, but he just stared back at her, looking exhausted. That was when I noticed, he seemed so tired, like he had been dealing with this for years. Ethan, Andrea whispered, say something. Ethan sighed, rubbing his face, then, in a quiet, calm voice, he said, I'm done. Andrea flinched. What? I'm done, he repeated. With this, with you. The room went completely silent. Andrea let out a nervous laugh. Ethan, baby, you're just mad. I'm not mad, he said, I'm embarrassed. The words hit her like a slap. You ruined your niece's party, Ethan continued. You stood in front of everyone and threw a tantrum over something that happened 16 years ago, and when no one took your side, you tried to break things. He shook his head. I can't do this anymore. Andrea's hands started shaking. You don't mean that. Ethan just stared at her. Then, without another word, he turned and walked toward the exit. Andrea's breath hitched. Wait, Ethan. But he didn't stop. Before anyone could react, Andrea ran after him. She was halfway to the door when, slip, her heel hit the champagne she had thrown. She didn't just trip, she crashed, hard. Gasps filled the room as she hit the floor with a loud thud. For a second, no one moved. Then Andrea let out a wail, not from pain, but from pure embarrassment. She sat on the floor, her dress soaked, her hair a mess, her once perfect makeup was now smeared down her face. She looked completely defeated. And the worst part? Ethan didn't even turn around. He walked out the door, leaving her there. Andrea let out another broken sob. But no one helped her, not her parents, not her friends, not even me. For the first time in her life, Andrea had truly, completely lost. Sarah walked over and took my hand. Best birthday ever, she whispered. I couldn't help but laugh. But this wasn't over yet. Because the next day, Andrea would do something none of us saw coming. I woke up the next morning, expecting my phone to ring. I thought Andrea would call our parents, crying about how we had ganged up on her, or maybe she'd send me a long, angry text, blaming me for everything. Either way, I was ready. But I wasn't ready for what she actually did. By noon, my phone was blowing up. Not from Andrea. From everyone else. My cousin, my aunt, even my coworkers, people who hadn't even been at the party. Did you see what Andrea posted? Check Facebook right now. She's lost her damn mind. My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook. Right at the top of my feed was her post. A long, dramatic rant. She had tagged everyone, me, my parents, even Sarah. And as I started reading, my blood ran cold. She had changed the entire story. In her version, we were the bad guys. She claimed I had always been jealous of her, that when she was finally about to have her sweet 16, I had selfishly gotten pregnant to steal the attention. She said our parents had forced her to cancel her party for me, that she had been traumatized, and that I had never apologized. Then she said Sarah had planned the whole party just to publicly humiliate her, and that our parents had let it happen. She called me jealous. She called Sarah cruel. She called our parents weak. And worst of all, she ended with, "This is why I have no choice but to cut these toxic people out of my life. If you support what they did to me, unfriend me now." She was playing the victim. And the worst part? People believed her. Within minutes, her friends, people who hadn't even been at the party, were commenting. OMG, I can't believe your own family would do this to you. You deserve better. Babe, cut them off. You were right to stand up for yourself. Shame on them. I gripped my phone so hard my fingers hurt. I wanted to scream. How was she so good at twisting the truth? Sarah walked into the room, rubbing her eyes. Why is my phone blowing up? I showed her the post. She read it silently. Then she did something that shocked me. She laughed. I blinked. You're laughing? Sarah grinned. Oh, Mom, let her dig her own grave. I frowned. What do you mean? She took my phone and scrolled down. Look past the people blindly supporting her. Keep going. I did. And that's when I saw it. People who had actually been at the party were calling her out. Andrea, that's not what happened. I was there. This is a straight-up lie. You embarrassed yourself. No one else did that to you. Wow, so you're just going to ignore the fact that you threw a glass across the room? Even my mom had left a comment. Andrea, you demanded we cancel your party. No one forced you. We have video proof. Stop lying. Andrea was replying. But she was losing it. Andrea wasn't just defending herself, she was attacking. Oh, so now I'm the liar? Funny how none of you cared when I was suffering. You're all brainwashed. If you're siding with them, you were never a real friend anyway. Good riddance. And then came the final blow. Sarah pulled up a video. Someone at the party had recorded Andrea's meltdown. And they had posted it. The video showed everything: her grabbing the mic, her drunken rant, the clip of her younger self demanding a trip to Paris, the champagne glass shattering, and Ethan walking away. The truth. And it already had thousands of views. Sarah smirked. So, Mom, how do you think Andrea is going to spin this one? I let out a slow breath and shook my head. She can't. But Andrea didn't give up that easily. Oh no. When lying didn't work, she doubled down. And that's when things got really bad. Andrea wasn't going down without a fight. After her Facebook rant backfired, she did what she always did: she escalated. First, she started texting our parents. Her messages were insane. You are dead to me. I hope you enjoy your precious, perfect daughter and granddaughter because I'm never speaking to you again. You ruined my life. I hope you can live with that. Then, she turned on me. She left 5 voicemails in a row, each angrier than the last. In the first, she screamed that I had set her up. In the second, she claimed I had brainwashed Sarah into hating her. By the third, she was full-on sobbing about how no one ever loved her. It was pathetic. I ignored her. So she showed up at my house. I was in the kitchen when I heard the banging on my front door. Bam, bam, bam. Then her voice, high-pitched and furious. Open the damn door, you coward. Sarah, sitting at the table, looked up from her phone. Wow, she really doesn't learn, huh? I sighed. Stay here. I cracked open the door. Andrea stood on my porch, hair a mess, mascara running down her face. She looked wild. Give me the video, she demanded. I stared at her. What video? The party video, the one Sarah played. I know you have the full thing. I want it, now. I raised an eyebrow. And why would I do that? Her jaw clenched. Because if you don't, I will make your life a living hell. I actually laughed. Andrea, you've been trying to ruin my life for years, and look where it got you. Her face turned red with anger. I swear, I will. Mom. Sarah stepped into the doorway, holding up her phone. Just so you know, I'm live streaming this, you know, in case Aunt Andrea tries to change the story again. Andrea's eyes widened. Then, with a frustrated scream, she turned and stormed off. I shut the door, locked it, and looked at Sarah. She's not done, I said. Sarah smirked. Neither are we. At first, I thought about just cutting Andrea off. But a part of me wanted her to face real consequences for once. That's when Sarah had the perfect idea. Aunt Andrea hates being embarrassed, right? She asked. More than anything, I nodded. Sarah grinned. Then let's make sure she never forgets this. And that's exactly what we did. Since Andrea had so much to say online, we made sure the truth stayed out there. Sarah's friend, the one who recorded Andrea's meltdown, posted the full video everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit. And the internet ate it up. The video went viral. Millions of views. People were commenting things like, "This is the most satisfying downfall ever. Imagine being this bitter over a birthday party from 16 years ago. She demanded a trip to Paris instead of a party? That makes it even funnier." The internet turned against her. People found her Facebook and called her out. Old classmates reminded her how spoiled she had been in school. Even her friends started distancing themselves. But the worst part for Andrea? Her job saw the video. She was a real estate agent, and in her job, image was everything. The company didn't want someone with a bad reputation representing them. So they fired her. She lost her job. Her reputation. And, just when she thought it couldn't get worse, Ethan, her husband, filed for divorce. Turns out, that party was his breaking point. He had been putting up with her selfishness for years. But this was too much. He left. Took the house, took the car, took everything. Andrea had nothing. And for the first time in her life, she had to deal with real consequences. Months passed. No one spoke to Andrea. She was completely cut off. Then, one day, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. I opened it and instantly recognized Andrea's handwriting. Pages and pages of her blaming me for ruining her life. At the very end, in big, angry letters, she wrote, "I hope you're happy." I stared at those words for a moment. Then I smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, I was. The end.